What is going on, diehards, degenerates, UFC fans? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy Clint, and you've been seeing a lot of this blue shirt lately, ladies and gentlemen. We come off another solid win, 6 more units in the bag. It would have been north of 7 if I hadn't gotten a little antsy and last second threw a little bit of money at iHor. So lost my mind just a little bit and gave a little tidbit back. But you know what? That's okay. We're on one hell of a streak right now. And I'm not supposed to curse in the first 5 minutes of the show. Apparently the YouTube algorithm hates that, but I'm getting a little too worked up, a little too excited. 2023, we are up 41 units per the official record. Boom! I cannot tell you guys how excited I am. Sitting in front of you all, doing this show for a full calendar year, going on Twitter and Instagram, and just all the haters and all the people calling me a joke, saying I'm working for the bookies, telling me I'm throwing false information out there on purpose because I just had a bad year. And oh, the vindication is starting to feel good. I'm trying to stay level. You got to find that perfect balance between trusting your balls just enough and not going so far as to bet Ihor Poteria. There's a middle ground to be had. There's a balance. So far, we've done quite well finding that sweet spot, and I lost it just a tidbit at the end of the day last week. The thing that hurts the most about it, though, is because I threw that little degenerate dart at Ihor. I went, you know what? I've gone too far. I've gone a little crazy. I'm not going to blow the profitability of this card. And I sat back and I didn't find my balls to play Walker over 1.5 or Walker by decision, which was plus 900. I called it. I called it last week. I saw it coming a mile away. I said, play Johnny Walker, play the over 1.5, and play the decision. And then I chickened out because I lost money on Ihor at the last second. So that was a little frustrating, but all in all, cannot complain. And that just shows you that the old ticker is right where it needs to be. So happy that the leans are going the right direction. Happy that the brain is in the right space. We'll take it. We'll take it. I hope everybody's having a fantastic Monday evening. Thank you all so much for showing up here to hang out with me. And once again, bright and early in the chat, we've got none other than George Ray Pro. And George, I pray you're listening to the podcast, my friend. I hope you go back, listen to the shenanigans at the beginning of the show, because you did win a t-shirt because you showed up 7 hours early. I gave you the first t-shirt victory. George, find me on social media. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. I want to give you your well-deserved shirt. Thank you so much for jumping in here early and supporting the show. And I see you guys in here. We've got Dixon Sender, Mike Imperial, Vigo in here talking fights way before the show started. You'll love to see it. We've got Dream, Bufo, Mike Harvey, Asher, Mushroom. We got MMA Jesus, Bob in the house. The MMA Propaholic Londo is back. Creep in the house. Nigel Lee, my guy. The Grateful Dude, Colstein, the whole gang is here. Joshua Frick, what is up? And Addicted to Combat, my guy Patrick. What's going on, everybody? I hope you all... Oh, Glenbot's here too. I love you guys. All right, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. I do apologize. I'm jumping forward forward. I'm missing a couple people. Rex Lee with the old t-shirt in the chat. My boy Danny Betts. It was good to see him on the Pub Sports Radio live stream. And Drew in the house. Nick, what's up? Nick, Drew, how we doing? Doze, one of our t-shirt winners from last week. All right, you guys, we could be here all night if I just kept shouting you all out because there's too many of you, too many to count, more numerous than the stars. And I love each and every one of you like your own special, beautiful painting. But we have fights to get to, all right? First, we have the introductions because this week's guest is extremely special, and I'll tell you why. Not only has he been a longtime fan of the show, not only has he been a guy I've been chatting with about fights for a very long time with a very reputable record and a solid track record on betting these fights, but he's your first ever guest to come from Instagram. 99% of the people that I fuck with are on Twitter. That's where we all talk. That's where we all hang out. We all chat. But this guy I hooked up with on Instagram, and that is how we found none other than free UFC bet picks. Welcome to the show, my man. It's long overdue. How you doing today?
Great to see you. Great to see everybody in the chat. Happy to be here, Clint. As you said, I've been a longtime fan. Always thanking you for the hard work you do week in, week out to help us all for free. Been looking forward to this. I worked hard on these barn burner fights. And looking forward to getting into them.
Man, I do have to apologize because now not every UFC card can just be the best card in the world, but I schedule like 2 months out ahead of time. I try to, I make sure people have notice and schedules line up and all that stuff because we got some serious guests on this show. So we scheduled these things out way in advance, and I looked at this one and I went, that doesn't sound half bad. And then the card just kind of fell apart and they snatched last week's co-main event and made it the main event. Like, I have no idea what this is. And it's low level, but you know what? You and I are the type of people that thrive on that low level bullshit. We will find ways to bet these fights and we will look for just the little chinks in the armor the bookies have left us. So I think we'll still have some fun with it.
Yeah, definitely agree. Sometimes these cards have like the most finishes and maybe a little less betting attention. We got some playoffs going on, right? So we might have some inefficient lines. Looking forward to cashing some bets and hopefully seeing some violence.
That's right. That is right. I like it. And you know what? I'm not sure what's going on with StreamYard, but once again, they're fucking up my settings, man. See, like I'm supposed to be able to have the two of us full screen here at the same time. There it goes. I found the button. All right, guys, we got it figured out. That looks much better. We are far prettier up close. All right, guys, everybody do me a favor. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Remember, this is Pub Sports Radio. If you enjoy the free sports betting content we bring to you daily, please subscribe here to the show. And then, of course, the lines are powered by Superbook Sports. Let's get straight on into it. I do have to apologize. It was Mother's Day weekend, everybody, so I did not have time to create the sexy tiles that I know you all love so very much. So we're going to roll with Tapology this week, and I promise I'll be back on the horse as soon as humanly possible when it comes to getting the good stuff up and running. First fight of the night, Takashi Sato is taking on Themba Gorimbo, and we've got a near pick'em price tag here on this one. And man, we talked about how bad this card was. Like right off the jump, we talked about this being a rough card. This is your curtain jerker. And we've got a pick'em price tag here. Themba's -110, Takashi Sato -110. It hurts my soul just a little bit because Takashi Sato is such a nice guy. He's always got a great attitude. He's always smiley. And he's just not UFC level. I had such high hopes for him. It seems like he's got power, man. He's got that one-punch KO in him. But he really hasn't done that to anybody. He got Jason Witt, who's the chinniest man in the division, and he got old busted Ben Saunders right before he hung it up. That's it. Everybody else has been able to take him down and absolutely smoke this man on the ground. Terrible grappling defense. That's really kind of his calling card at this point. I call him the Asian Sam Alvey because he is super low volume. He plods forward. He looks for that one big shot. And if that doesn't work for him, he's simply not going to win the fight. 3 losses by sub, 60% takedown defense. And Themba, 32 years old, 0-1 in the UFC, came in really hot. You know, taking pictures with the belts, talking about being the champion, really late bloomer, getting to the octagon at this stage of life for him. wings wild and sloppy strikes on the feet, man. He's another one of these guys that looks to, club you to the ground, rock you, back you up against the cage, and then level change. Believe it or not, he's got kind of a striker's frame, but he's actually more of a grappler. Gets you on the ground. And in his UFC debut, he took down AJ Fletcher several times. It just didn't go well for him once he got to the ground. He made mistakes. He got reversed. He got swept. He ended up being on bottom for a lot of that fight. If he's in the driver's seat grappling, Gorimbo's dangerous. But if he gets put on his back, he's kind of like a turtle. Like, he just doesn't have a whole lot to offer off of his back. The problem is, I don't see Takashi Sato ever getting in top position in this spot. Believe it or not, man, I haven't pulled the trigger on the bet yet because it seems like a lot of people are actually betting on Takashi Sato here. Gorimbo opened up a minus 165. He is now even money. I'm just going to sit tight for a minute, because I think the bookies had it right in the first place. I think the UFC is going full sell on Takashi Sato. I don't think he's showing any improvements. I don't know that he's getting any better. And I think Themba's going to be able to take him down the way everybody else has. He's training over at not MMA Master, sorry. He's training over with Colby Covington, whoever that happens to be at this stage. But if you're an offensive wrestler, grappler type, I don't know of a better training partner for you than Colby Covington. And he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. As long as he doesn't get binked, I think Gorimbo wins this fight, whether it's by decision, sub, or ground and pound TKO. He's got all the options available to him. What do you think, man? Am I crazy for wanting to actually put my hard-earned money on Themba Gorimbo?
No, I feel you. I remember when he got his debut, it was like, why is this guy even coming to the UFC? AJ Fletcher needed a short notice opponent, but he had just beat like Julio Rodriguez, who was 13-6 at the time, 37 years old. Now he's 13-8. Not a real impressive win there to get into the UFC. Everyone was spamming AJ Fletcher, including myself, like spamming AJ Fletcher inside the distance and parlays, and we were all sweating. That first round, in the first half of the second round, Themba had him in some tough spots, as you mentioned. He had AJ's back twice, but like you said, he lost those positions. It was actually kind of tough to see that with the angle. It's tough to know whether AJ got the hook out, but 2 different times, Themba just lost back control because he lost the hook and falls on bottom. Really kind of maybe fixable mistakes, they seem like boneheaded mistakes, but maybe they're fixable. Overall, he just looked way better than anyone was expecting. He's got really fast striking, even on the regional scene, good kicks, fast kicks, diverse kicks. When he throws hands, they're usually in vicious combos. Sometimes he gets a little hittable, especially when he's throwing naked kicks like that. He actually got dropped by Karam throwing a naked kick. But when he does land on bottom, he'll fish for a leg and get up. And I agree. I think he can get some takedowns here. It's interesting, like Sato with that 60%, that seems high because when you think of him, you just picture him getting taken down all the time, right?
Yeah.
But Bilal Muhammad, I've got it in my notes here. Bilal was only 2 of 9 against him, so his takedown defense is something of a question mark to me because it looks good sometimes and terrible other times. Themba has a tendency when he goes for takedowns to end up on his knees. He's going for double legs, but he doesn't run through them or keep his feet. He ends up on his knees, clutching the feet. That's actually landed him on bottom a few times. So Themba's wrestling is not great. His jiu-jitsu is pretty good, but like you said, he's had some gaffes against AJ. Overall, though, if you just watch a little bit of tape, which I know you did, I went in expecting to pick Sato, and I came away from the tape study all over Themba. I am also curious on where the line will move. Lately, the line movement has been right. In previous years, you could wait for the public to, pile on and then side with the bookie at better odds than the bookie offered it originally. This year, line movement is correct. So I'm a little concerned on that line movement, but I'm on Themba.
Okay. I'm glad to hear we agree, kicking off the night on the same side here. That always makes me feel a little bit better about my picks here. And I was this close to already hitting the submit button, man. So I think I'm going to end up betting Gorimbo, which is terrifying here to me. But one thing that you mentioned was when he goes in for those level changes, he does end up on his knees. We have seen Sato do some of the right things, defend a couple takedowns here and there. But one of the things he showed you mentioned it in the Fletcher fight, was his ability to find the back. I think he's just so quick with his transitions. If he gets Sato in some form of a scramble, even if he hasn't completed the takedown, he can climb him like a tree. You know what I mean? I think he can shuck him, get him off balance, and find his way to the back. And we saw that even though he was able to completely nullify Gunnar Nelson's rear naked choke attempts, he had no answer for the back control. So I do think that Themba Gorimbo actually has the opportunity to even ride the body lock. Like if he just wants to take this guy's back and chill for a round, he'll just take the whole round that way and do it again the next time.
That Gunnar fight is such a weird one, right? Because I mean, Baeza like threw down Sato super easily. It was not like a gorgeous takedown. He just like tossed him over kind of thing. And then, gets the arm triangle in round 2. Like we're always seeing Sato get submitted. I was amazed that he lasted against Gunnar. That was when Gunnar was kind of coming back from some injuries and what have you, right? So like, that's all I can chalk it up to is that Gunnar wasn't on his A game. But yeah, it's like two fighters here that are really hard to predict. I just think Sato's like so slow on the feet,
He is really slow on the feet. And I think that'll, level changes under those big looping punches. That'll be a real quick way to go ahead and get it down to the ground. So, all right, man, we agree. First fight of the night, Themba Gorimbo. Thank you all for hanging out. We do already have 120 live viewers here on the show. Do me a favor one more time and go ahead and hit the like button here while you are hanging out. The next fight on the card is going to be a women's MMA matchup here. We have got Victoria Leonardo taking on Natalia Silva. And I just need to, I tweeted about it this morning. I got to bask in this here for a second because Natalia Silva, I don't know if you remember, but they actually gave us plus 200 on Miss Natalia Silva when she fought Jazz Judavicius. I hit that for a 2-unit bet, man. I didn't have a whole lot to cheer about in 2022, but that spot, can you believe she is sitting as a minus 750 these days? And they thought she was plus 200 to Jazz Judavicius. I have no words. This woman has done a complete 180. And honestly, man, we might even be able to save a little time here on this fight because I really like Victoria Leonardo. She's 9-4, 33 years old, coming off a solid performance against Mandy Bohm, but we just saw just how bad Mandy Bohm is in her last fight last weekend. Victoria really needs to be able to like maul people and put that wrestling grappling pace on them in order to get her wins. She is slow on the feet, very awkward striking, weird little side kicks. Natalia Silva is like 10-1 now on Superbook Sports, even though she was minus 750 a couple of days ago. I never use the word lock when betting mixed martial arts. I don't think there's such a thing as a lock because it's still gambling at the end of the day. You could blow your ACL out. You could stub your toe into the cage and have your foot ripped in half. So there's no such thing. Man, this is a lock. Natalia Silva is going to kill this girl by however she wants, whether it's working her on the feet. She's going to be so much faster. She's got a better gas tank. She's got incredible 92% takedown defense, and she's fought 2 absolutely massive women in her first 2 UFC fights. This is highlight reel time. Like, I don't know if it's going to come early or come late, but I think she wrecks Victoria Leonardo, and I'm going to be looking for something as far as inside the distance.
Totally agree. I kind of blacked out there for a second when you mentioned Mandy Bohm. Mandy Bohm and Kim with that terrible fight IQ cost me the sweep this weekend. Cost me about a
no.
I always parlay my whole card. Normally it misses, 3 fights in, it's dead. This week, Kim losing 2 points cost me the win. So sorry.
Can you believe? Okay, the pettiest referee I've ever seen in my life. Like, everybody and their mother in the UFC gets 6 warnings on anything. And granted, illegal strikes are illegal strikes. I've actually been an advocate for faster point taking. Absolutely. But the fact that he took points, not once, but twice, and one of them was like a goofy little get off me push kick between rounds. It was like, I can't believe she lost 2 points. I feel so bad for you and anybody that had her in any kind of a bet because I can't wrap my brain around not 1 but 2 deductions in that fight.
Dude, I haven't had a sweep in like over a year, and I deserved it. And they took a point away like a full round later. Like, sorry. So everyone in the world is, feels the same way as I did. Everyone had Kim in a little something, or at least expected it. Like, if you had Mandy Bohm, kudos to you. But good grief, I couldn't resist mentioning that. So I totally agree. The way we do our parlays is like there's a whale up top. We call it the parlay structure. Some people call it a ladder. It's kind of how Cody does the PRPs, right? Like,
Okay.
just need tier 1 to hit. It's safe, usually even money. And then tier 2 and tier 3 get a little riskier. We've got Natalia Silva in our tier 3. Like tier 3, everything hit this week. We just need Bo Nickel, Bobby Knuckles, Volkanovski, and Natalia to come through, and it's plus 1853. So I need Natalia bad. I don't even feel compelled to parlay her anymore because we got her at minus 540 in that parlay. I totally agree with everything you said. Leonardo's got 29% takedown offense. She's going to get pieced up. She did have some good cage control in a couple fights, but like you said, Natalia just beat 2 studs. I have respect. Jasmine's not amazing, but I think Bleda would run through with respect Victoria Leonardo. So I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. The strength and pace that she's able to keep, I think, is going to be the key factor here. And she's going to fight someone who is not going to. She mixes her striking and her grappling well enough, Victoria Leonardo does, that I think she'll actually have moments where she's standing and trying to strike with her. And I just don't think that's going to end well. Oh, Uncle Wheezy. Shout out my guy in the chat saying Kim said that she fought with a completely torn ACL. I can't believe that. That's insane. And to go a step further, she almost had that girl dead on the feet with the first punch thrown of the fight. Mandy Bohm took one shot from Kim and was like, oh, she stepped back, shook her head. Some of the worst fight IQ I've ever seen from Kim, but if she was going in on a torn ACL, I can imagine nothing was really going right for her then. That poor girl. My goodness. All right, everybody. Here we go. Next up, we're going to move along. Chase Hooper taking on Nick Fiore. And I really wanted to get a Samuel L. Jackson picture in here for you guys and call him Nick Fury, but missed opportunity. We'll do it next time. This is the Twitter civil war of the week. Everybody has an opinion on this fight, and rightfully so. It is another pick'em price tag here, except Fiore is a slight favorite here. Minus 135. Money seems to be coming in his direction. Chase Hooper, the plus 115 underdog, and you guys know me. I had to take my opportunity to retweet the Chase Hooper round 3 moment when we hit the 40-1 TKO in the 3rd round. I love this kid. 11-3-1. He was overpriced, and now I feel like he's being underpriced. Yeah, there goes my guy Danny Betts. 3 units on Fiore at plus 100. Good job getting the good number, though, my guy. Good job there. I think Chase Hooper's got a lot of upside. Obviously, he needs to grow out, get that man strength going. And if you look at his Instagram, that's all he's been doing. Lots of time spent in the gym, lots of lifting weights. This kid is working really hard on getting that physical strength up. It's been a problem for him, but he's big, he's long, he's flexible. Obviously got, he's the king of scrambles down there. He'll find his way to top position by sweeping you, reversing you, tying you up into a knot, and then rolling on top somehow. Violent ground and pound from this kid. He might be tall, skinny, with not a lot of pop on the feet, but once he gets down on his knees, all of a sudden, those elbows are deadly. He'll have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this spot, and his opponent, Nick Fiore, he dropped his UFC debut against Rebecca, but the one thing that really stood out to me in that fight was just how freaking tough this guy is. He's a member of the New England cartel, so that shouldn't really surprise anybody, but he got his ass beat for 15 straight minutes and just kept on coming. Kept trying, didn't give up, didn't go away. You got to be impressed with the heart. BJJ black belt, 100% finish rate, but here's where things get a little bit interesting on Nick Fiore. We do have to mention that he's got a 100% finish rate, but let me just show you Mr. Nick Fiore's record here. Steven Striegel, George Seppard, Andre Borgos, Jerome Mickle, Jay Ellis twice, not once, twice, the legend Jay Ellis himself. You guys probably don't know most of these names, and rightfully so, but let me show you. That's one of them. This is George. This is Andre, by far the best option out of the bunch, with a 50-50 record here in the last 6 fights. This is Jerome. And then, of course, the king himself, Jay freaking Ellis, which let me just scroll here for Jay Ellis. Also, by the way, can you imagine being Rodrigo Almeida? Can you imagine being this poor sumbitch who's the only man in God knows how long? Look at that. Since 2017. And there's Isaiah. Jay Ellis is the laughingstock of MMA. They throw Jay Ellis to pad the resumes of young up-and-coming fighters. And those two bastards, Isaiah Pitts and Rodrigo Almeida, lost to him. Dear God, you could never show your face in a reputable MMA gym ever again in your life after losing to Jay Ellis. So it's a spot to me where, yeah, we've seen bad records. We've seen padded records. We know you can't just judge a book by its cover, but Nick Fiore, I've got serious questions about just how good he really is because of the caliber of opposition that he's been beating. And then his one UFC fight, people seem to think that he earned some respect based on getting his ass beaten for 15 minutes. Now, he showed some decent power, stepped in hard on a couple big shots. I like his elbows. When he gets in tight, he's actually got some nasty elbows on his opponents there. But I think he's going to struggle to close the range on Chase Hooper. Both these guys like to grapple, and the difference between them is Fiore kind of has a tendency to fall to his back. He attacks those front chokes. He jumps guard. I think we're going to find Chase Hooper on top of this guy several times over the course of this fight. And whether he can keep up with the scrambles of Chase Hooper, black belts, not all grapplers are created equal, folks. And that's something I think, especially people who don't grapple or have never grappled, don't understand. These guys like Chase Hooper that can reverse you, full mount bottom to back control top because his legs can bend all the way over you. Like, not everybody can do that. Just because you're a black belt doesn't mean that you're capable of pulling off a move like that. So we've got two high-level scrambly grapplers, one of them far more scrambly than the other, and we're getting dog money on the guy with UFC experience versus the guy who's got half the experience of his opponents. Man, I think I got to ride with my boy, and I'm just going to sit tight and see how far this number goes because Chase Hooper is getting massively disrespected coming off his last fight where he got knocked out in stellar fashion. I don't know that he has to worry about that same level of threat here on the feet. And I think Chase Hooper is going to be improving and getting better. I'm probably going to go back to the well, man. What do you think on this one?
I'm on Fiore, and I actually bet him today at minus 140, and I'm disappointed because when I did my write-up yesterday, he was minus 113, and I just didn't sack up. So I'm paying an extra quarter unit, but I feel more confidence, now, because I kind of thought I was crazy, right? But you mentioned a lot of stuff there. Fiore's got a nice lead elbow when people crash the distance. His striking's not absolutely terrible. His wrestling looked okay against Mateusz Rubeski, who's a monster. I think Rubeski would finish Hooper pretty easily.
Probably so.
Fiore, it's tough to find tape on him, especially because there's another Nick Fiore from the New England area who also fought Jerome Mickle. It's just kind of a funny, strange coincidence that I can't help but mention. But yeah, you showed the records. His combined records before he got to the UFC were 61 and 234. Like 22% winning percentage. And you saw it there. You had Jay Ellis back-to-back fights. Jay Ellis had lost 5 times between those 2 back-to-back fights. If you lost to Jay Ellis, you should be investigated by the betting commission because guaranteed you had money on Jay Ellis.
You had to be training at Glory MMA and Fitness if you lost to Jay Ellis.
I like him. Everyone likes him, and he's fun to watch. I think he's going to be Imanari rolling for a foot here, though. We should mention, I believe he's moving up to lightweight here. This is his first fight at lightweight. He's packing on some muscle, like you said. But for a guy who couldn't wrestle at featherweight, I think he's going to be stuck standing here. And that's Steve Garcia is a stud. Nice job by you on Steve Garcia as a big dog last fight against Shailon. I was on Shailon. God, Chase's striking was rough, though, wasn't it? I mean, I think he threw 3 spinning back fists incredibly slowly. So, not to pile on to something we all know that his striking isn't great, but I do think Fiore is going to be able to defend the takedowns and win the striking. Chase isn't going to be small. He's actually the taller man here, right? He's a tall guy. So I'm interested to see how he's going to look. We kind of, it's a real binary fight, I think, and it's safe to say. But like you said, there are different levels of black belts, but Fiore, I think, has pretty good grappling. He's a Renzo Gracie black belt. He survived against Rubeski for a while. I think he can stay out of trouble. I would go in sweaty. I would make sure my feet were glistening with something, if I you just got to avoid a heel hook here. And I think Nick gets it. Okay.
All right. And man, this is one of those ones where honestly, and the chat is lighting up with support on both sides of this argument.
It's that fight.
This is a pick'em fight for a reason. This is one of those ones where it's like voting for the president of the United States. Half of us are going to be pissed off come Saturday night, the other half are going to be excited, but it was a coin flip for a reason. Like, you don't have to flip this coin. All of us think we're seeing something as far as an advantage goes. Those advantages exist, but they exist on both sides. And this is a close fight. You could pass on this one, guys. This could be an excellent fireball and popcorn option for the evening where you just don't need to have money invested. The bigger of a dog Chase Hooper becomes, the more I am likely to bet him. And that's where this comes down, is if I can get a bigger plus number. And then honestly, man, I think I would be looking at either the decision prop, or I might back it straight up with my round 3 TKO. And I know that's going to sound insane because he was not able to get KO'd by Rebeski. But Rebeski charges in like a bull in a china shop and wings big power hooks and tries to nuke people on the feet. If Hooper is able to essentially recreate the performance he had the night I cashed that round 3 ticket, it's not because of his standing prowess, it's because of his scrambling prowess. And if his opponent can't keep up for 15 straight minutes of scrambling and rolling and he finds his way to the back, he won't be able to sink in a choke on another jiu-jitsu black belt. But a tired guy that curls up into a ball and eats elbows, that's what'll stop the fight. So believe it or not, I may run it back with the KO prop.
I don't blame you. I totally love that look always. And often it's like, do the inside the distance. Don't pick the sub prop. Do the inside the distance. It's basically the same money, right? It's like 5% more expensive or something because you're not expecting the TKO. So that's a great lesson there. I don't mind that look at all.
I like it, man. Well, good luck to everybody because I know we are all going to be invested on this fight. So everybody's geared up and ready to go for this one. Next up, a far less entertaining fight, in my opinion. Ilir Latifi takes on Rodrigo Nascimento at heavyweight. And if any of you have been watching this show for any certain amount of time, you guys know I just absolutely hate Ilir Latifi. I don't know what it like. The guy never did anything to me. He didn't steal my girlfriend. I can't stand the guy. He is a bygone wrestle boxer who is far more boring than any wrestle boxer's been in the UFC for the last 5 years. Like, he will take you down. His takedowns are incredible. He has one big oomph effort to like pick people up and throw them and then get on top. And then he just sits there. Like, he will literally stay as long as the referee will let him, just laying on top of you. And he's an absolute brick. Like, the guy he's got no neck. He's got no shoulders. There's no underhooks to dig for because there's no space between his arms and his back. You cannot get this man off of you once he's sitting on your chest, between your legs, in your guard, whatever. So Latifi has gotten by and won a couple of fights based on the simple fact that he's able to tank one big power shot and then sit on your chest. He is now 40 years old. He's got a lifelong history of wrestling, tons of back injuries, issues, problems for the later half of his life. And his last 2 wins were a fraudulent split decision over Tanner Boser, which I think should have gone the other direction. And then a win over old man Alexei Olenek. Rest in peace, my guy. He's not dead. He's just out of the UFC. I cannot get around putting any sort of money or endorsing any sort of bet on Ilir Latifi at this stage of his career. Now, his opponent, Rodrigo Nascimento, he's a favorite, and in my mind, rightfully so in this kind of a spot. He's much younger. He's a true heavyweight. He's a big, big boy. Knows how to grapple, actually. He's one of these guys that started off as a grappler, jiu-jitsu artist, and has kind of rounded out his striking. Solid Muay Thai, wide base, hits hard. And honestly, he's shown off some decent cardio in his last couple fights. You know, against the Alan Boudreaux fight, where he survived an absolute beating, maybe the best Boudreaux has ever looked in his UFC run in that first round. Took everything he had to offer, survived it, waded through it, and then killed the guy as soon as the second round started. His last fight, he went a full 15 minutes. Like, he's not the most impressive heavyweight in the world, but I think he's got a better cardio gas tank than Ilir Latifi does. And if it goes to the ground, I don't know that Latifi's totally safe because he's not dealing with a 46-year-old fishing for Ezekiel chokes. Now he's dealing with a young Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And then the deeper this fight gets, the harder those takedowns are going to be to get. I think Nascimento knocks Ilir Latifi out. I'm going to say the second round. Maybe it takes him till the third, but I think he's going to drag Latifi late and then put the old man out to pasture. What do you think, man? What are you doing on this fight?
This is a really tough one. You know, it's like whoever lands on top, I think is going to be safe to stay there. Because like you mentioned, Latifi does nothing on top offensively. So he just stays so safe with his head on your chin and his hands tied on your chest and just really hangs out, right? Like you mentioned. So I think he's going to be safe from the jiu-jitsu. When Latifi has any punches come his way, he really ducks his head. So I think Rodrigo's live for like a knee up the middle or some uppercuts, strikes up the middle, I think are going to be effective here. It's strange though. It's just such a tough situation. Like Latifi gained a ton of weight before his last fight. He normally weighs in like 240. He weighed in at 253 against Alexei. We remember that fight was canceled multiple times and rebooked. And but his striking looked better than I expected. He actually had better footwork. Like his footwork was never great, and he just gained 13 pounds. And he looked a little faster on the feet than normal. He was cutting some angles on Alexei. But on paper, he went 3 of 6 on takedowns. The first 2 were like caught kicks. The most telegraphed, slowest kicks you've ever seen in your life coming from Alexei. They had hit Latifi like in the thigh. Like no one's kicked anyone in the thigh since like the 2000s. Like it's a terrible kicking technique. And that's how Latifi got the takedown at the beginning of round 1 and like the end of round 2. Besides that, his wrestling did not look good against Alexei. He did employ some nice cage control, which he's great at. That might be, they called it his bread and butter over and over during that fight. Like that might be his biggest strength. So I agree with you. I think Latifi's just more diverse, more skilled, a little smoother everywhere. But it's just so sketchy because like whoever lands on top, I think is going to stay there until the round ends.
I hear you. And
last thing I'll mention, I love betting some fights to start round 2 as a parlay leg. This has like fight goes the distance written all over it, in my opinion, unless Rodrigo catches him. But Latifi was headbutting so much on the ground last fight. He busted up Alexei headbutting on the ground. And every time they were striking, they were crashing the distance and he would like duck his head kind of blindly. As I mentioned, I think he's live for some strikes up the middle. I really think like we could see something unpredictable and a fight stopped early due to a clash of heads or something here. That's the only thing sketching me out and preventing me from just spamming like the fight to start round 2 at probably minus 600-ish.
Honestly, it's been way too long since I've shouted out my guy Lou in the chat, but this fight does have Yambags written all over it, does it not? The point deduction prop. We saw 2 in the same fight last week. Latifi's not opposed to using some sketchy strategies there. And I think that anybody facing Latifi, that fence grab, man, that's always just like right there because you just get tired of getting chucked to the ground and its natural reaction. And the way he dumps people, they go flying. It's not like your average kind of sink to the ground type of takedown. So I actually think you've got something there. Maybe you sprinkle on that 20-1 point deduction prop here for this fight because definitely live anytime Latifi fights. And the older these guys get and the more tired they get, I think people tend to make mistakes and commit fouls more when they're exhausted and their gas tank is bad.
Yeah, that might be a good look. The last one we hit, we don't recommend one every card, but maybe 5 or 6 this year. And I think we've only hit one. It was Edwards versus Usman.
Nice.
Yeah, because in the second matchup, you think of it like as the first matchup, but in the second matchup, there was tons of fence grabs that just went unnoticed. So we might be due to do one of those.
That's the key though, right? It's 20-1. So you don't need to hit them very often to turn a profit there. And you just got to be careful. You can't, scatter them every single fight card, but you can find a couple opportunities here and there. I haven't done one in a long time myself. This might be the week. I might have to go back to it.
We might have to both ride that. I think that'd be fun.
I like it. I'm sure Lou will see this and hit me up on Twitter and let me know whether or not he approves. So Lou, I'm waiting to hear for you, buddy.
He'll say it's orthodox versus orthodox. So it reduces the likelihood of a low blow, but I think everything else we mentioned is totally live.
Absolutely. All right, everybody sit tight here for me. Hang on real quick. Gotta let you know something. It is time to shout out our sponsors. First and foremost, obviously, Pub Sports Radio, but then Superbook Sports has been kind and generous enough to go ahead and sponsor the show. And are you guys ready for this? Because they've been sponsoring the show for about 1.5 years, and I have not yet had a freaking deposit code with Superbook Sports. They got one done. I've got an actual ad read for you guys, so let's go right ahead real quick. Bring that big bet energy this summer with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the most trusted name in sports betting, and right now use promo code SUPERDIEHARD to score up to $250 with your first bonus bet. Win or lose, Superbook Sports will match your first bet up to $250 with promo code SUPERDIEHARD. Simply visit superbook.com for terms and conditions, or download the Superbook Colorado app, Arizona app, whatever state you happen to be in the App Store. Enter the promo code SUPERDIEHARD. That's SUPERDIEHARD. You'll get $250 courtesy of Superbook Sports. Gambling problem? Be sure to call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. So guys, do me a favor real quick. And if you have not signed up at Superbook Sports, do so. Use my code. Let them know you guys love me, because that goes forever with these opportunities. So the more signups I can get with that code, the better. And I know a lot of you have been supporting me for a long time. So some of you may have already deposited and stuff like that over there. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you guys. But if you haven't already, big help for your boy if you pulled that trigger here going into this one. Back to the commercials. Spectation Sports, promo code DIEHARD for 25% off your membership for Regional Scene MMA, WXC, Cage Titans, Aries FC, all good stuff here. You guys know the drill. And finally, the Sharp app. Make sure you join the Sharp app Discord. I'll be going ahead and putting links in the description below for you guys to go check them out. They've been okay. So I've been shouting out a lot of things that the Sharp app report does correctly and can help you out with your betting, making money, especially on other sports that I don't handle. KBO, that's right, Korean baseball. If you want to like go to bed at the end of the night and then not watch baseball and then wake up with more money, they've been smashing Korean baseball lately, and it's been awesome. So make sure you check out the Sharp app. Thank you very much for hanging out with us here on the show, everybody. Do me a favor and hit the like button. And right before, one last thing, before we get back to the regularly scheduled programming, I have to shout out a special commenter from last week's show, because as most of you know, we did a t-shirt giveaway for the new merch. That's right. We reopened the brand new Die Hard MMA shop. And last week, to celebrate, we gave away some merchandise for you, the fans. Let me go ahead and get what am I doing right now? Okay, so last week, Straight Wager comments, curious, when you watch ESPN or your local news, do you want merchandise from the host? This begging for thumbs up to give away unsolicited merchandise is unbearable. Talking to the listeners like they're kindergartners who need to react a certain way for free merchandise. Time's running out, guys. Hit the like button, please, for the 15th time, or else no free merch. It's a sad look on what is a generally fun and knowledgeable MMA show. So thank you so much for your comment, Straight Wager. And just for you, we're going to give away 2 more shirts, 2 more t-shirts, just for Straight Wager. If you guys missed out on last week's opportunity for some Die Hard, fresh, hot off the shelves merchandise, get in the chat right now, hit t-shirt. I'm going to pick 2 more winners, and we're going to load you guys up with a free shirt. So right now, go right ahead. Go nuts in the chat. I'm going to pick out 2 names real quick here, and we're going to get you guys some free merchandise. All right, I'm going to give you guys a minute because I got to get caught up. Spam the chat, hit t-shirt.
Can I mention it? Well, let's give these folks a second to comment. The liking helps the channel, right? And there's so much hard work that goes into this. Like, we used to do videos, and it's just so much work. It's always worth a quick reminder to hit that like.
Absolutely. All right, winner number 1.
Turn on notifications. Get your bell rung.
Bufo on the beat, my guy. I know you. Bufo's been around absolutely forever. Bufo, congratulations, my guy. You know where to find me. We got you a t-shirt, and one more coming your way, folks. One more winner coming your way. So here we go. Ian Matleff. Ian, my guy, you have won a shirt. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you guys participating. I appreciate you guys supporting me and the show. And for any of you who don't want the merchandise, just don't wear a shirt then, damn it. Like everybody else gets to have fun. Nigel, you already won a t-shirt. You won last week. What are you doing? All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We can go ahead and get on into the next fight of the night now. Next up, you've got Orion Cosce taking on Gilbert Urbina. And I have talked to you all about the Cosce brothers. Like, we thought these guys were going to be the shit. We really thought the Cosce brothers were going to be something special when they signed off of Dana White's Contender Series. They've got that farm strength thing going on. They have that wrestling base, wrestling background, big power blast doubles. They wade in, throw big swing and overhooks. And believe it or not, they actually carry their power kind of late. So like they can redline after starting super fast. And even if they're gassed out, they're still dangerous late in the fight. But they've got a tendency to let up. They've got a tendency to let down, and they get rocked in almost every single fight if they don't get it done in the first round. He is taking on tough veteran. That's right. I think maybe for the first time, we have Dana White Contender Series versus the Ultimate Fighter. It might have happened like maybe once or twice before. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but this might actually be the first matchup. I think they need to do this more often. It's kind of fun to have these guys from different outlets making it to the UFC and then going head to head with the styles. I like it. More tough versus Dana White Contender Series, please. Urbina is the guy that got KO'd by Tresean Gore on the Ultimate Fighter. And then for whatever reason, Gore couldn't compete in the finale. So he took the short notice opportunity to take on Bryan Battle. 10 days notice. And he's a natural 170 fighter who was taking this opportunity up at 185 and did not look out of place up at 185. Like this guy was toe to toe with Bryan Battle. Almost looked like he was maybe a little bit bigger than him there in that spot, but his gas tank obviously wasn't ready for a full fight because he was coming off the couch. Had Bryan Battle hurt early in that fight, almost got him out of there, wasn't able to finish it, and then ended up losing as the fight kind of dragged on a little bit later. Urbina is going to be huge back down at 170. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage here in this spot. He has nasty elbows. He fought Sean Brady on the regional scene. You know, when this guy got signed to the Ultimate Fighter, he was 6-1. That only loss was Sean freaking Brady. And I've had some people ask me, aren't you a little bit worried about like his inability to wrestle? Yeah, maybe a little. But he has good urgency to get back to the cage. He has good urgency to get back up to his feet. And he's a decent offensive wrestler himself. And he's fighting Orion Cosce. So we know Cosce's going to be able to take this man down in the first round. Can he do it in the second? I'm not so sure. Can he do it in the third? I really don't think so. So I'm not worried in this particular matchup about Cosce being able to wrestle Urbina for 15 straight minutes, especially when Urbina's got a full camp coming into this fight. Not a short notice replacement, not rolling off the couch, training actively, staying ready, getting better, coming in with a full opportunity here in this spot. And I'm shocked. The bookies opened up Cosce as a -230 favorite. Once again, I've told you guys before, I wish I had looked a little further ahead. I didn't look so far ahead. It was just 1 week because I'm a week-to-week show. I wish I had gotten the plus money on Urbina 2 weeks ago. Because if you've got Urbina at plus 180 or some shit, my goodness, you're in an amazing spot. I got Urbina yesterday, plus 130. He's already down to plus 110 in some places. So the money is crashing in on this, man. And I actually think this line is about to flip. I think this is a moment where we say the wrong fighter is favorite. Any money plus money is good money, in my opinion, in this spot. I think Urbina is going to win. And I actually think he's going to knock Cosce out probably in the second or the third round. What do you think on this one, man? Am I crazy?
No, I'm with you. I got on Urbina yesterday at plus 128 as well.
Let's go.
You know, he's just 27. We haven't seen him in almost 2 years. As a young, like we've seen this over and over again where these fighters come back with vast improvements. He was already good striking, good low kick. His head kind of stays straight up in the air when he strikes. My notes actually call him chinny before the Tresean Gore fight. So in some of his wins, like apparently I was seeing him get dropped back in the day. And then Tresean was dropping him with jabs. You know, like Tresean dropped him a lot. So I think there are some questions, like, and he would pop right back up. It wasn't even like he was hurt. It was like he just doesn't react well to the punches. So that's a concern. But he's got diverse kicks, oblique kicks. I think he's just far more talented here, far more talented. I like, you know, Orion. He gets, like, we immediately think Orion's going to have terrible cardio because of Lewis, right? And just that big letdown back in the day by Lewis. But Orion's cardio looked, you know, decent to me. His wrestling is just not that great, though. It's looping shots on the feet, like you said, and then we think of him as a power wrestler. But, I mean, he went 3 for 8 against a kickboxer in Blood Diamond. Like, Urbina looked better wrestling Battle a weight class up than Orion did against a New Zealand kickboxer. We know the city kickboxing guys have good takedown defense, all of them. But no,
except for maybe Blood Diamond.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's the one that even they admit. They're like, well, like they call him the bad wrestler. I'm like, you guys are all kickboxers, but largely from Kaikara France to Izzy, and I said it last week against Ulberg. I was like, no, Ulberg's going to stay on his feet. These guys have really good takedown defense. But anyway, Blood Diamond.
Don't remind me about the Ulberg fight.
But Blood Diamond looked surprisingly good. Like everyone thought Orion was just going to absolutely run through him. Orion, threw a back to belly suplex, landed on his own head, and then he wasn't able to fully secure the takedown there. And so I don't know. I think his wrestling's overrated. And on the feet, Urbina is going to look real good. Like you said, I think he might be the favorite. But I'll tell you, as soon as they stare down on Friday, money's going to pour in on Urbina because it's going to be gigantic, like you said.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. And man, I'm glad that you brought up Blood Diamond because every once in a while, I try to play host a little bit, sneakily, and I'll sprinkle little parts of the breakdown in at the beginning, and then I save a trump card or two to circle back around after my guest gets a chance to kind of lay out their thoughts on it. But man, my guy in the chat, Fonzo, gets it. Blood Diamond, absolute trash. And that's my thing, is I'm like, I was going to bring up the Blood Diamond spot. Blood Diamond had this man dead to rights. I mean, dead to rights. Blood Diamond was this close to knocking out Cosce, and because he is unable to grapple whatsoever, managed to end up riding out the third round, desperately controlling him, not letting him get back up to his feet. But it was by no means an easy fight or a clean win from Cosce in this spot. I just don't think Cosce knows how to play the game, frankly. I know this version is better than his brother, who comes out like a madman in round one, and that's just it. It's do or die in the first round. Orion does seem to have just a little bit better cardio, just a little bit better fight IQ. But I don't think he's going to be able to keep up that pace and pressure on Urbina. I think Urbina is too clean on the feet. And one thing that you mentioned about him getting dropped by Gore, I think that's a young fighter thing. This guy is the third Urbina brother. Yeah. They've got a history. The Urbina brothers have made it to the UFC. We've known them all. It's a fighting family. And this guy has the weight of the family on his shoulders. And he's 6-1. When he was getting hurt really badly anyway, some of the times on the regional scene, obviously it would have been a worse record at the time, but it's a young fighter thing. We see young fighters not react well to getting hit. And then as they get older, they get more sparring rounds, they train, they get more accustomed to taking damage. They roll better with the shots. A lot of these things kind of work themselves out over the course of their careers as they grow and improve. I don't know that he's chinny. Man, Tresean Gore, the one thing that guy does is hit like an absolute truck. So I think it was just a levels thing. I think it was the first time he's fought somebody, because Sean Brady is he's a higher level than Tresean Gore is, but he doesn't hit like Gore does. That guy's a grappler. You know what I mean? Gore was the first freak that he'd ever fought. So yeah, it did not feel good every time that guy touched his face. He kept getting back up, though, and that's what you want to see. And I can excuse the knockout against Brian Battle, where he comes in, balls to the wall for the first 4 minutes, do or die, get it done because you don't have a gas tank for this fight, and it didn't go his way. I can forgive that also. I think we're going to get the true and correct Gilbert Urbina coming in here to this fight. Now, I'm making a lot of excuses for the kid, but I think with young fighters, you can kind of take some of that with a grain of salt. This is a bit of a leap of faith that he's better than the full package we've seen to this point, but I think he's good enough to get by Cosce here. And Cosce does hit hard. So I'm not going to be at all shocked if this guy gets dropped and KO'd in the first round again, because the Cosces do that to people. But if that does not happen, I think he's better than Orion everywhere else.
I agree. To push back a tiny bit, Gore doesn't have a ton of knockouts on his record. Gilbert Urbina is the reason that people think Gore is this vicious knockout puncher, right?
That's a valid point.
It was the straight shots that were getting him, and Orion's never thrown a straight shot. Everything's looping in wide. And like you said, Blood Diamond had him hurt. In round 2, he was blasting him. He was getting some plum knees in round 2. And I think that plum could be real affected by the 4 inches taller Urbina here as well.
Absolutely. And like you said, man, not even in training. He's never worked a jab in his life. No straight shots whatsoever.
Well, maybe after the fight,
All right, man. I'm glad we're on the same page there for that one. Oh man, I can't wait to talk to you about this fight. I can't wait. Next up, Karolina Kowalkiewicz is taking on Vanessa, the little monster, Demopoulos. Now, I've got a warm, soft spot in my heart for Vanessa. She actually came on the podcast for a brief minute while she was training over at Fight Ready. Brandon Olivas was on with me to break down her last fight, and she jumped on the stream for an impromptu interview. She is absolutely as sweet and sincere as she looks in all of her other interviews and stuff like that. Gotta love her. But I've got a bit of a tumultuous history with Karolina. I don't like her. So I know she's one. Maybe we should call her one of the greats, kind of, maybe not. I don't know. She's been around for a long time. She's fought everybody in this division. And then she went on that horrific run at the end of her career where she went on like a 4 or 5 fight losing streak, getting knocked out several times. It was ugly. The broken face. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And it was one of those situations where you can kind of see the fire die in a fighter, and after that, there's no coming back. But when she decided to come back, they gave her the bottom of the barrel, trash canniest trash cans they could ever find. Felice Herrig on her retirement fight and Silvana Gomez Juarez. And you know what? I thought that she was so far shot that I bet them both. Now, these are the bottom of the barrel, worst 2 fighters in the division, and I bet them both because that tells you what I think of where Karolina is at in her life at this point. She has no power, none whatsoever. She keeps a high volume, high pace, and that's great, except she does not like to get hit. Ever since she retired, ever since she took that skull-crushing knockout, and no judgment, I wouldn't react the same to getting punched in the face after that either. So I'm not hating, but she just can't get punched like that anymore and take it. Thing is, Silvana never was able to quite touch her. Even though she's got the power to finish her, she never got there. Felice Herrig never had that power in the first place. And if you're going grappler versus grappler, I should have seen that one coming a mile away. That Karolina is still a more complete grappler than someone like Felice Herrig. Vanessa, on the other hand, has recently moved her camp out to Colorado. She is training at Elevation now, and she's working with Factory X Muay Thai. And this girl is explosive as all get out. Athletic, physically strong, good wrestling, sits down on her strikes. The one piece that's really been missing has been that ability to wrestle. Like she can grapple, or I'm sorry, that ability to strike. She can wrestle. She can take people down. She can get on top of you. She can pin you, bully you up against the cage. But her striking is really sloppy at range, right? She comes in and fires big looping overhands. She does have some nice, hard, solid leg kicks. I don't like leaving Fight Ready because I think it's the best gym around. But if you're going to go somewhere to work on your striking and level up in that department, Factory X is a pretty damn good choice, in my opinion. I think they could do some work with this girl. She's already got the grappling covered. Let's get that striking leveled up. And I think I have to go back to the well here, man. I hate that. I didn't make the bet yet. And the reason for that is I wanted to talk it through with you. And I'm a little scared because I've already given money away not once but twice trying to fade Karolina, who is now a minus 140 favorite in this spot. Vanessa is a plus 120 underdog. And I think I have to just sack up, trust my read, and understand that I've been trying to fade her with the wrong caliber of fighters. This is a small step up in competition, and it might be enough to get me to try and fade her yet again. What do you think? Am I crazy? Should I just leave it alone at this point? Or is Vanessa probably the side here?
It's a tough one. And I agree. I believe she didn't leave Fight Ready like by choice. I think it was just a management thing. So, I'm sure like we're both fans of Fight Ready, and we love Santino and Brandon. And
absolutely,
I think, it wasn't any conflict of styles or she doesn't, it was a management thing, a money thing, I think. I'm not aware of like a whole bunch of women fighters at Factory X. So I'm curious who she's like training with. Her wrestling used to be pretty bad, but it was getting better. It was getting better at Fight Ready. Like she went 2-4 against Maria Oliveira. Previously she was kind of submission or bust, but she's won 2 decisions in a row. Like I think she was really showing great improvement at Fight Ready. She shows grit and durability. She's got that dog in her. And yeah, it's tough. I think Karolina must have got a new manager. It's like, hey, stop pushing me against Jan Jounen Andrade and all these monsters. Like, give me some winnable fights here, right? Like, so sometimes, you just like, manager, like, can we get a win bonus, please? Like, let's get some better selected opponents here. I think there's just so many unknowns. It's really tough.
How brutal for her, man.
Right. Yeah. Just the fighting the best of the best. I mean, a wink has never made someone more money, though. She became like instant famous overnight because of that cool demeanor, hands behind her back, and that wink back in the day. And she won us all over. We've all loved KK ever since, right? So like, it's just funny. Like it's just tough, but she does look much better in her last two fights. She was on the front foot the whole time against Savannah Gomez-Juarez. She had Savannah backing up. Savannah was throwing lots, but landing nothing. KK's got like really good striking defense, even when she's advancing forward. She's got good head movements and parries. So, to me, it's another binary fight. Lots of unknowns. I watched so much tape on this, and I don't intend to. I don't know who the pick is at this point. Like, I still don't know who I'm going to pick.
Okay. All right. No, man, it's definitely a bit of a conundrum on this one. I'm gonna at this point tentatively pick Vanessa Demopoulos, mostly just because I think she's got more upside at this stage. I think Karolina is kind of a ghost of herself, and what she's got left might be enough to still beat an evolving fighter. Vanessa she's not young, but she got into the fight game rather late, so I do think there's still improvements there to be made. She's not the complete version of herself just yet, but Karolina has been the completed version of herself, and at this point, I'd argue is maybe even a broken version of herself at this stage. So I'm going to go with Vanessa. I think she'll have enough here to go ahead and get this fight to the ground. And the other two girls that Karolina has been able to just handle on the mat, Vanessa's a BJJ black belt. She's far stronger than the last two opponents Karolina's had, and that's been kind of the big thing for me, is that Karolina physically has been just overwhelmed by some of these girls, and these last two have not been able to contend with her physically. I think Vanessa will.
I could definitely see that. I was originally, when this got made, I saw it. I thought, Vanessa was a nice dog pick. She probably still is, but just, Karolina looked a little better in that Savannah fight than I recalled once I rewatched it. Striking looked good. She went 2 for 2 on takedowns. She looked like kind of her old self. So it just has me torn.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Definitely not one that I'm not touting a 3-unit, or a 5-unit max bet bomb or anything. I might throw 1 unit on Vanessa. We'll see what happens. No official bet yet until Saturday. I'll let you guys know. Of course, give us a follow on social media. I'm over on Twitter more often than not, but my guy, both of us have both platforms. But for UFC bet picks, you will find primarily working it over on Instagram. Make sure you give him a follow and support our guy for coming in, sharing all the knowledge and doing the show with us here today. Next up, we've got Maheshate returning versus Slava Claus in maybe the best fight name matchup of the evening. Like, these guys, both the names are just so fun to say. I love this fight. I love it so much. So poor Slava Claus gets to the UFC off of the Contender Series, and they've given him nothing but grapplers. Nothing but guys that want to take him down and have absolutely zilch to do with him on the feet. And he's got some of the worst takedown defense you've ever seen. He gave up 9 in his last fight. 9. Now, Mike Davis, the Beast Boy, I've got high hopes for Beast Boy. I like Beast Boy. So I don't think that's a knock or anything like that. That dude's a real piece of work. But Slava, he's a striker first. And if you can get to him and get him to the ground, he's just in so much trouble. And he has striker cardio. He doesn't have grappler cardio. So it doesn't even take the best grappler in the world to muscle him to the ground and then make him work and tire him out, slow him down. You can just be an okay grappler and still pull that feat off, in my opinion. But you don't want to be standing with this guy. Maheshate might stand with him, though, because this guy is huge. He's an absolutely massive fighter for this weight class, and he likes to play the outside. This is boxing versus kicking, right? Like Slava Claus, I know he's got like a full arsenal, but he likes to keep that high shell. He likes to walk his way in, likes to punch his way into his opponent, rib roasters. He loves his 3 and 4 hook combos. He's got to be in tight to pull that stuff off. Maheshate's got a kicking game. He likes to attack the legs, attack the body. Big body kick on this kid. And he's coming off getting mauled by Rafa Garcia in his last fight. He showed off some serious toughness surviving that particular fight. But I think if either of these guys has any grappling upside whatsoever, it's Maheshate. I don't know if he's going to go to it, but if he does, we know what happens to Slava Claus. And it's funny because I see nothing but one-way traffic this week, man. All I see is love for Slava. And I'm not sure I get it. Like, people might just be a little, disenchanted with Maheshate after he dropped the ball to Rafa Garcia in his last fight. But I'm not so sure why everybody's so high up on Slava here in this fight. If we're going to get a boxer versus kickboxer type of fight, I think this kid is live. Like, we're going to get a 15-minute back and forth kickboxing type of fight. Slava's potentially going to struggle with closing the distance in the range, reaching him with those hands if he's kept at kicking distance. And then if Maheshate does clinch up with him, he's going to be the physically larger, physically stronger fighter. And we know the hole in Slava Claus's game, it's not as, the takedown defense for Maheshate's not as bad as Slava Claus. Like, if one guy's worse grappling than the other, it's going to be Slava. So, like, I know I've picked a lot of dogs on this card, but these are all like really tough, really close fights. We're talking minus, 130 plus 110 type of numbers. I lean with the dog again, man. I kind of think Maheshate's getting a little bit disrespected here in this spot. What do you think?
Feel the same way. It's a tough one, and everyone just wants to see Slava Claus fight a striker, right? So, like, yes, finally he gets a striker, and we love the body work, we love the combos. That left hook is gorgeous. Like, everyone just likes him. He's likable. But even like his last two wins, Chris Duncan and whoever else, apologies, they both took him down. Dakota Bush took him down twice before getting knocked out.
I bet Bush.
Yeah, Chris Duncan got him down twice before getting knocked out. You mentioned Mike Davison has 9 takedowns. D. Casey got 11, right? So yeah, we all know the hole in Slava Claus's game. You mentioned it. Maheshate's just got a bigger skeleton here. We talked about Steve Garcia earlier. I think Steve Garcia would be a good fight with Slava Claus. Maheshate starched him, right? 74 seconds, dropped him twice in the opening minute. So I agree, and I think like the under 1.5 is good looking. Some folks in the chat are saying violence, and I think that's a good look.
Violence is probably good. And
last thing is that Maheshate's 8 years younger, like 7 years and 11 months younger. And we know that gives you like a damn near 70% chance to win, right? So I agree with everything you said.
I think we've just seen, and again, I've said this before on this show tonight, the completed fighter thing. These older fighters, that's the version of them you're going to get. They're not necessarily going to add new wrinkles. If they do, it's going to take longer. I don't think Slava's going to suddenly be somebody different. Yeah, he's getting a striker finally, but what if this guy shoots on him? What if this guy just pins him up against the fence and like sags on him with all that huge body weight and drags him to the mat once? We could suddenly see Maheshate decide to go ahead and turn grappler in this fight, and then it takes a complete turn because Slava doesn't look the same after defending 2 takedowns. You know what I mean? So I'm glad we agree on that one. And Sever, shout out, saying shocker, another agreement. Hey, you guys know me and my guest, we put on blinders, we put on earphones. I've only tweeted one pick on this card. We haven't talked about this at all. So I know it's not nearly as fun when we're not debating every other fight, but we just seem to be lining up here tonight, and I'll take it. I like it because this guy's pretty smart.
Oh, thanks. You too. I'll mention the Slava's got higher volume and higher accuracy. Like, Maheshate's got 25% striking accuracy, which is about the lowest you'll ever see. I almost like wonder if there's some mistake or something skewing the data there. But on paper, if you look at the stats, Borshchev looks good. It's just, they both have the same strengths. They both got power. One's 8 years younger and an underdog and bigger. So It's just a tough one.
I'm right there with you, man. Completely agree. All right. Next up, everybody, we are looking at Michael Johnson taking on CDF Carlos Diego Ferreira. And we haven't seen Carlos in a long time. If you remember the last time we saw Carlos Diego Ferreira, it was when he took that really weird TKO against Mateus Gamrot. Like, these guys went back and forth for the first round. It was tough. It was competitive. And then he got like kneed in the floating rib from behind, like seatbelt style, got hit right in the back and immediately called it a day. Man, I will keep this one short. You've got MJ, who finds a way to lose fights. Like, he's been in the driver's seat more times than I can count, and then has sold himself down the river with a mistake and lost a fight. Versus Carlos Diego Ferreira, who's on a 3-fight losing streak. You can argue is getting a step down in competition here, but we haven't seen him since 2020. 21 and is now 38 years old. I think Michael Johnson is the side here. He's going to be cleaner on the feet, faster hands, and on his best night, we've seen what he can do. Knocked out Dustin Poirier cold. Like, this guy's hands are an absolute menace, and that's why his nickname makes sense. But he's also got 80% takedown defense. And while Carlos Diego Ferreira is a decent wrestler, he's still a jiu-jitsu guy. So, like, they're not the best wrestlers in the entire world. I think he can defend the takedowns and keep this thing standing. And then MJ just has a massive advantage. And honestly, I've said this before and it's burned me, but I think CDF is shot. I know he's getting a step down in competition here. We should be able to say this is a buy low. You know, you're getting the guy that was expected to be a contender and the much better fighter here at a lower price. But I think that's because he's old. I think that's because he's fragile. I think he lost those last couple of fights in ways that you shouldn't be losing fights. You know what I mean? So that I think I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Michael Johnson finished him.
I have no idea why he's not a huge favorite here. I agree with everything you said. I got him at plus 122. I've only got 4 bets. Fiore, Urbina, MJ's the third. And you mentioned his takedown defense. Diego's got 24% takedown offense. You know, once it hits the ground, Diego looks incredible. It's just incredibly fast scrambles. He looks 10 years younger. He's just amazing when it hits the ground. I just truly don't think he lands a single takedown here. Not a single one. I'm on MJ with just 1 unit.
Okay. I'm kind of thinking the same thing. I was thinking maybe a 1 unit shot on MJ, maybe a half unit on the knockout, because I am calling for it. I do think he gets there at some point, but I've got to give the PSA, man. If you're betting Michael Johnson, you have to know exactly what you're getting into, because this man can be winning 13 minutes of a fight and then just completely fold. It happens. So nothing is set in stone with Michael Johnson.
This is always a popular look. Sorry to, back up attack, but always a popular look is to live bet the Michael Johnson opponent, right? Because Michael Johnson's going to come out on a tear, land 50 more significant strikes in round 1, and probably be a minus 300 favorite. And if you're going to bet Diego, that'd be the time.
That's very true. It's very true. Except this time, though, I think that the cardio for CDF is not going to allow him to have that kind of a spectacular comeback. It's younger bucks that have great cardio that can force that issue a little bit deeper in the fight. I don't see that really happening here, but we'll see. We will see. Next up, we are talking about Andre Fialho taking on Joaquin Buckley, which is, this fight, Joaquin Buckley causes absolute car crashes in the cage. And because of that, this guy is must-see TV. Every single time he steps into the octagon, you've got to tune in for Buckley. And right now, for this fight, we have got Buckley as a minus 215 favorite, taking on Fialho, who's a plus 185 dog. And it's weird because this one is the reverse of my usual process, man, because I find myself on a lot of underdogs. I don't need to tell you guys that. I bet a lot of underdogs. Thankfully, 2023 has been the year of the dog, and it's been good to me. I came in fully expecting to bet Andre Fialho this week. Like, as soon as I saw this line, I was like, there's no way. I'm absolutely betting Andre. And then when I did my look into it, I don't think I'm betting Buckley, but I'm absolutely picking Buckley. I think Fialho is a bit of a fraud, man. Like, he's got 13 wins all by knockout, and he's decent, but like, he's one-punched a couple guys in the UFC. Cameron Van Camp, I'm not impressed at all with. He's chinny. He's big for the division, but he's chinny. Miguel Baeza, he's chinny. I called that way before anybody else ever recognized that he was chinny. He got both those guys out of there. If he can't one-punch you right away, the deeper he gets dragged in fights, the worse it seems to be for him. Even if you go back to like his LFA days, his PFL days, like he lost a decision in the LFA. Chris Curtis TKO'd him, in the 3rd round. Like, he doesn't do great. And even back when he fought in Bellator, he I think that split decision with AJ Matthews might have potentially gone the wrong way. Like, he just is not a fighter that's built to win minutes. So he either punches you dead in the first couple rounds, usually the first round, or he gets figured out. Like these UFC caliber strikers figure him out over the course of 10, 15 minutes. And then they're the ones finding his chin. And he's not the most durable guy in the world. Like he can take a couple of big shots, but as we've seen, that starts to accumulate. His last 2 fights, he's been knocked out by opponents that are just cleaner than he is on the feet. Buckley is finally dropping down to 170 pounds. I think that's where he belongs. I think that's where he should have been all along. He came in light every single time he fought at 185 because he's way smaller than his opponents, but he's always got a reach advantage. He's got those long, lanky arms still. He's incredibly fast. He's incredibly explosive. Like, I think there's a lot to like about Buckley. I think he's going to be just that much quicker to the punch than Andre Fialho is in this spot. And on top of that, we've seen the evolution of his wrestling game. I think he could slow down and tire out Andre Fialho, take some of that power out of those punches early. The problem for me is Buckley is a little fragile himself. We've seen him absolutely fall apart in a couple of fights. So I think violence is probably the best answer. One of these guys is absolutely going to sleep. But if I'm picking a side, I think the side is probably Buckley.
I agree. I think it's a tough one. It's interesting because they're both coming off 2 losses, but like 4 combined fights ago, this would be, co-headline material, right? Like not too long ago, these guys were everyone's darlings. The Fialho's a huge favorite, to Jake Matthews, I think it was, and gets blasted.
That was a fun night.
Yeah, nice job for you, not me.
I had the round 2 called and everything, man. I saw that fight like the Matrix.
I do remember that. Yeah, it's a tough division. Like Jake Matthews then goes and shits the bed against Semi. Like,
my gosh, I know.
This is like right there in the middle. It's right there in the middle weight wise where anything's live to happen. Like they have kind of 50-50 to go to decision or have a finish. It's just, it's a fun division, but it can be difficult. I agree with you on Buckley. He's got the faster, like he's got the quicker footwork. Fialho can like glide. He's got smoother footwork. He might be like faster footwork. He covers more distance. Buckley got knocked out by Chris Curtis, but he was beating Chris Curtis bad with volume, big time volume. And he only got caught because he threw a high kick that kind of got caught on Fialho's shoulder. And then he was completely defenseless on one foot. Fialho just throws a straight shot and blasts him and then finishes him on the ground. Like you can kind of worry about Buckley's durability with so many knockout losses, but I don't know. Nasruddin Imavov caught him with an amazing front kick that sent his mouthpiece flying, and he was totally fine. He actually might need a new mouthpiece because Kevin Holland sent it flying. Nasruddin sent it flying. Like his mouthpiece is always flying all over. We should mention this is the first fight, not the first fight ever for Buckley at 170, but I think the first UFC fight for Buckley at 170. He's been fighting.
I believe the first UFC fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like in his younger years, he fought at 170, but essentially for our purposes, it's his first fight at 170. On his Instagram today, he was already at like 185 and change. So, with 4 days to go, he's only 15 pounds up. I think he's going to make weight just fine. Mm-hmm. I think, Fialho's got such low volume. It's terrible. He gasses. He's kind of defensively sound early, and then that all goes out the window once he starts throwing. His head stays straight up in the air. So I think Buckley's got better cardio, better volume, better wrestling, and better kicks. I think Buckley should get it done pretty easy.
I'm with you. I think it's Buckley by kind of however he wants. And that sounds weird to say. He's not submitting anybody, but he could win a decision if he decides to put on that singlet. And then obviously he's got that pop in his punches. He can knock this guy out. We've seen it happen before, and he's just so explosive with those big shots. I think he can end him. So siding with the favorite on this one. Next up, we have got Emily Ducote taking on Lupita Godinez, and Lupi is filling in here on short notice for this fight. I actually like Emily Ducote. I'll be honest with you. I actually really like what I see from Ducote. She is 1-1, I believe, so far here in the UFC, but man, she just absolutely lit up Jessica Penne. And it's funny because she went from such an incredible, stellar performance against Jessica Penne to doing almost the exact opposite against Angela Hill. Like she did nothing the same in that fight, and she spent the entire fight backpedaling. Like I've never seen Angela Hill move forward so freely against a fighter, I think, ever. Like Angela Hill did whatever she wanted in that fight, and Ducote was on the defense running the entire time. That leads me to believe that's a significant hole in her game, is that she's probably not as effective moving backwards here. And Lupi, she's been a little overpriced you know, in her last couple of fights, I thought she was going to end Cynthia Calvillo. I got to give Cynthia just a little bit of credit. I talked some serious shit about her. She's another fighter I talked about where I felt like the fire died. Her love for fighting was gone. And then she looked really good against Lupita Godinez. And that fight went to a very close split that I'm not entirely certain Lupi deserved to win. So Lupi definitely still has some work to do when it comes to her overall skill set. But I think she's got more than enough to beat Emily Ducote here, man. If she goes back to the grappling, especially if we're not just doing a 15-minute kickboxing match, if she mixes in some takedowns, that's something that Ducote struggled with, prior to her UFC run. And I don't mean struggled like she's got awful takedown defense or anything like that, but mixing up that pressure, using that forward pressure, leg kicks, mixing up the feints, level change, overhand, that really puts her on the defense. And if Lupi can do that to her, she puts her on the back foot, she keeps her there. I think Lupi probably wins a pretty clean decision at this point. What about you?
Really tough one, right? Pick him for a reason. I think it's going to be a catch weight, 120 for the short notice. Shouldn't matter as much. Like we've got, I think the Chase Hooper and the Buckley weight changes are more relevant, but worth mentioning. Lupi's striking looked better against Cynthia, like just from the appearance. Like the stats didn't jump off the page, and Cynthia put way more volume on her, like triple the volume. But Lupi's striking just looked to the eye much better than before. But her wrestling, I feel like, is almost overrated. She went 0 for 2, 0 for 2 last fight against Cynthia. Cynthia landed one takedown on Lupi. So I feel like the wrestling, and we got to remember Lupi kind of bounces between divisions. So sometimes it's tough. Like sometimes she's super undersized and sometimes not. I think if it stays striking, Emily's got better counters and just a little more straight shot technique. It is a tough one. You don't want to rely on MMA math too much, but you mentioned it. Emily beat Penne beat Lupi. So again, that we can't put too much stock into that. But Emily's definitely got the higher volume on the feet, decent takedown defense. Jessica Penne went 0 for 8 against her. I think it should be a straight pick 'em. I think there might be some value on it, but I think this one is very likely to go to decision, like incredibly likely. So I might just parlay some alternate over and root for the buzzer,
Yeah, that's probably a good move. Honestly, I think finishing power is going to be something difficult to find in this fight because both these women are tough. Both of them are really tough. And even though they've both got some solid offense, it's not the kind of offense that will end a fellow tough fighter. You know what I mean? So I think they'll both be strong enough to survive in these spots here. I like Lupita Godinez myself. And again, I think I'm calling for the decision, probably Lupi by decision. Hey, play the split. If you want to, sprinkle something a little crazy, have a little fun with it, go nuts, play the split decision prop. This one probably could be very, very tight, very, very close. And I think the overs are going to be the way to look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd mentioned this might be another good live betting opportunity. Lupi, because of her wrestling technique, it's very like body locky, very strength based. She tends to gas a little bit, specifically in the wrestling. Like her striking will look fine, but she won't get takedowns in round 3 here. I promise you. I think Emily might be a good live betting spot. Emily came in with good pedigree. Like she was the Invicta champ. She had a Bellator title shot against Alimale McFarlane. Like Emily came in with some hype. She's not a household name. This is a rare matchup with two like up and coming fighters. It's kind of refreshing to see. Not going to be overly like exciting violence wise, but it's meaningful for the division. So looking forward to it. Absolutely.
This one will be fun. I agree. All right, everybody, we're getting down to the good stuff here. Last couple fights on the card. Edmund Shabazian is taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. And I love this fight. I love it so much. And I'll tell you why. Because this is a find out what we got spot, right? This is the UFC going, we had the golden boy. We pushed him way too hard, way too early. Darren Till style. We're going to shove this guy to a title shot at 24 years old and have an absolute gold mine. Didn't happen. We found out real quick that Edmund needed to work on his cardio. We found out real quick that Edmund needed to work on his grappling. And because of that, it set this poor kid back years in his life. Like taking the fights that he took, getting mauled the way he got mauled, losing his confidence as a young fighter, losing his getting killed 3 times back to back in the exact same manner. They shelved this kid. They absolutely wrecked this poor boy. And now he's gone back to the drawing board. He finally wisened up and left the terrible gym that he was at, where the only thing you learn is head movement. He's finally got a real camp. He's now being repped by Dominance MMA, which is Ali. And let me tell you guys, Ali plays chess when other people play checkers when it comes to fights. And I found that very, very interesting here. That he got essentially one get-right fight against Dolce Lungiambula, and now they're giving him Fluffy. Fluffy is the guy that you may remember for melting Rodolfo Vieira. Like, this kid was given absolutely no shot to take on Vieira, the black belt hunter himself, and put a pace on that man and ended up submitting him due to just tiring him out over the course of that fight. He has one speed, and that's go. Like, he never slows down. Anthony has weaponized cardio. He is the definition of weaponized cardio. He shoots 6.49 takedowns per 15 minutes. He hits at a 66% accuracy, and he's one of these guys that'll get you thinking about the takedown, and then he level changes and he comes up and he rib roasts you and he cracks you in the head with a hook a couple times, and then he goes right back to the legs. Like, keeping up with Fluffy is something that is very, very hard to do. In fact, in his last fight, Marc-Andre Barrio is a guy that everybody cheers for his cardio and his durability. He melted Marc-Andre Barrio in his last fight, finished him in the third round also. Like, there's a lot to like about Fluffy. And I think what the UFC is doing here is going, look, so we put all this time and effort and energy into this kid. We thought he had the skills to be a champion. Great. He got back on track. Let's see if he's better than this guy who is kind of a throwaway, but has turned into something. Like, one of them is going to get the shine of the other, right? Like, they've got highlight reels that they can play for either guy. If Anthony Hernandez finishes Edmund Shabazian, rocket ship, baby. He's taken anything and everything you could have ever been excited about with this kid, and he's taking it with him to the top 10. If Edmund Shabazian comes out here and somehow manages to beat Anthony Hernandez, something a couple of fighters that were favored to do so weren't able to pull off, all of a sudden he's back. The golden boy is back. The UFC is ready to crown him. He's going to move back up into the top 10. Like, this is a big moment for whoever wins this fight. This is a career trajectory moment, and I'm here for it, man. I love it. The one thing I'll say about Edmund is I've tried to pound into my listeners time and time again. He's so young. He's still just 25 years old. So there's a lot of room for Edmund to fix these holes. There's a lot of room for Edmund to improve and get better. And I think he's going to. The thing that really concerns me about Anthony Hernandez is his willingness to take damage. Man, Edmund Shabazian has got some fast, slick, accurate hands, and he hits really hard, and harder than anybody that Fluffy's faced so far in the UFC. This guy has melted Rodolfo, Marc-Andre, and Josh Fremd, but he gets hit clean in a lot of those fights. And I don't think that they would have put Edmund in this kind of a spot unless they were convinced that he had an opportunity to win it. Training at Extreme Couture, love that move for him. Even though it's Dolce, he did show some improved takedown defense in his last fight. And I think Fluffy's a little undersized for this weight class, if I'm being honest. I know that helps aid to like his speed and his cardio, but I think Edmund's going to have a decent size advantage here in this spot. I am extremely tempted to look at that knockout prop for Edmund Shabazian. Now, let me like walk it back just a little bit here. I think Edmund's knockout or bust. Like, he either wins this fight via KO and probably early, or he doesn't win it at all. There's a reason Fluffy's the favorite here in this spot. His cardio, his pace, that's going to be a problem. But I think Edmund can crack him in round one, and I'm going to be curious to see what that number looks like. What do you make of this fight?
It's a tough one. Like, I like my parlays, and this is a card severely lacking parlay legs. I'm a Fluffy fan, so I'm trying to like block out that bias. But let's talk about the Dolce fight, last fight against Edmund Shabazian. Dolce had gotten down every opponent he fought in the UFC, sometimes going 100%. He went 2 for 2 against Puna. He went 1 for 1 against Cody Brundage. He had taken down every UFC opponent except Magomed Ankalaev. And he went 0 for 2 last fight against Edmund. Like, Dolce gets takedowns every single fight, unless he's fighting, to me, a top 2 light heavyweight in the world, Magomed, with whose name ends in a V. That's the only guy he wasn't able to get down until Edmund. Edmund fought off both takedown attempts. like you said, he's so young, going to be improving so quickly. It's a tough one. It feels like a bad matchup for Edmund because Fluffy's got all the tools, the grit, the cardio, the pace. Is going to put him up against the cage and grind him, right? But like Josh Fremd, and we like Josh Fremd. We hit on him big against it, last fight. I know you were on Cedric, so
don't remind me about that damn bet. The fucking Dumas.
So like we know Fremd is good, but Fremd had Fluffy in big time trouble. Round 2, like Fluffy was almost out on his feet. Fluffy often lets people up. Fluffy often loses position going for guillotines. I don't think Fluffy's just going to absolutely wash him. He's going to get takedowns on Edmund, I think. Edmund's going to get up. Edmund's going to have his opportunities. I think this fight should be much closer than it is lined. That's all. That's like at the bottom of my notes, like on my write-up for this, I said I'm amazed the line is this wide. I haven't like officially picked anybody yet. I think I got to go Fluffy. But even though I'm desperately looking for parlay legs on this short card with a bunch of pick'em fights, I don't feel that confident in Anthony.
Yeah. I get that, man. I absolutely get that. I think Edmund is hard to trust. And honestly, this line smells like a trap to me. It smells very much of the obvious spot. You know what I mean? And I think Edmund could be your parlay buster, as my guy Liam Picks Fights likes to say. He could be your parlay buster of the week. Just looking back at, a couple of the spots here. Fluffy was he was pick'em against Marcus Perez, who also, I believe, nuked him. He was a huge favorite to Jo Young Park, and then bet all the way down to a minus 140 closing by the time that fight went off. He was a dog to Kevin Holland. He was a massive dog to Rodolfo when he pulled off the upset. Turns around and suddenly is a massive favorite against both Stoltzfus and Fremd. You mentioned Fremd almost had him out in that fight. He's gone from being a guy who's very much seen as the dog in a lot of these spots to suddenly being someone you've got to pay a blue chip price tag for. You know what I mean? And the opposite is true for Edmund Shabazian, where like he's been a huge favorite in the majority of all of his fights. We're talking minus 380, minus 245, minus 270. He's been down to being a pick'em, and he was bet to being a dog in a couple of these spots, but he never opened as the dog. He was minus 450 against Dalcha. Now suddenly he's a plus 215 underdog. I'm admittedly not the best market reader. In fact, I might be the worst market reader of like our friends that do podcasts and betting content. That's not my gig. I don't read the market the way some of these guys do. But this smells like a trap to me. I do think I'm going to have a taste of that knockout prop. At the very bare minimum, I'll have something on Edmund by KO. Not sure if I'm going to bet the money line, but it's another dogger pass spot for me, man. I could see him really showing up and reminding people why we thought he could potentially be a champion when he fully grows into that frame and completes his skill set. I still think this kid's got some upside.
Yep. Should be a good one. Should be a barn burner. Like it's going to be gritty, fast, lots of grappling. It should be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Always in back and forth fights. He's never had a lopsided loss or a lopsided win. He's always in bangers.
Absolutely. He's must-see TV for sure. All right, everybody, it is main event time. We got 200 live viewers in the show. Make sure you hit the like button for us. Next up, Mackenzie Dern taking on Angie Overkill Hill. And you guys know I've got a soft spot for Angie Hill. We broke this fight down a week or so ago. They snatched it up, made it a main event. I actually like it. There's some high stakes here in this spot. I think Dern, they're really looking to get her kind of back on track. Angie has shown up and showed out, impressed some people, pulled off the upset like she always does in back-to-back fights here, beating Ducote and Lupita. She was not supposed to beat Lupi Godinez, man. Not a lot of people did not expect her to go ahead and get that win. And it wasn't even a split. Like she went straight up unanimous bell to bell with both of these women here. So I think Angela Hill finally is getting some of the respect that she deserves from the betting and MMA community in general. Problem for me is, again, she's a completed fighter. She's 38 years old. The game plan of Angela Hill is always what it is. Same exact thing. Strong Muay Thai, defend the takedown, fights close with her opponents if they're able to handle that Muay Thai striking. I like Mackenzie Dern. She's got that deadly, deadly game plan. You know, she's world class on the ground. Her BJJ is absolutely fantastic. All it takes is one takedown or one opponent who's dumb enough to leap into your guard. God forbid. I wanted to fade her so many times, and I lost so much money betting against her because like 3 or 4 women in a row all just like leapt into her guard when she made it to the UFC. So she can always snatch a sub off of pretty much anybody. But what really impressed me was the Tecia Torres fight. Tecia is an absolute hurricane, man. She's so fast. She is so quick. Mackenzie Dern's really been working on her striking. You've seen the improvements and the way she was able to crowd Tecia. And she doesn't have a wrestling game. If Mackenzie Dern could develop some wrestling, she'd be absolutely unstoppable. But she can't wrestle. She found her way to the back. Like, she found her way climbing Tecia Torres like a freaking tree, and she still got where she needed to be. Now, Tecia was savvy enough to survive in those spots and get out of damaging areas and defend the body triangles and shake her off. And so she lost a split in that spot to Tecia. But to me, it was an evolution of her game. We saw the next stage of Mackenzie Dern, what she's capable of. She's thinking, she's working on it. And especially in a 25-minute fight over the course of 5 rounds, I think Angela Hill will make a mistake. She's been submitted twice over the course of her career. She does also have solid takedown defense, but she got armbarred by Randa Marcos, man. I mean, I know it was 2019, long time ago, but nobody's getting tapped by Randa Marcos. I think eventually Mackenzie Dern will find her way to a submission. The problem is it's a classic Mackenzie Dern spot. You're laying chalk on her as the favorite, and you're also getting plus 150-ish on her sub prop because it's her most likely method to victory. Those aren't numbers I'm really interested in. I think I'm going to pick Mackenzie Dern to get the win. My heart will probably be rooting once again for Angie Hill because I just love the girl. She gets so much unnecessary hate. Like, I'm really hoping she comes out and shows out again. My guy MMA Jesus in the chat saying Hill via KO. That's a bold call, my guy. If she comes out and knocks her out, that would be something. But I'm probably going to stay off of this one from a side perspective. I do think there's potential for an under because of the way Dern grapples. And like my guy Jesus said, there's an opportunity that Hill might be able to piece her up on the feet to the point that she quits or catches her with something big. We have seen Dern hurt. She's powered her way through it before, so not necessarily the most likely outcome, but maybe an under gets my money. I don't have a whole lot for this one, man. Do you have more than me, something more confident for the people? Because I don't like this main event personally.
Yeah, we all know these fighters so well, right? It's a very binary fight. We think if Angie can stay on her feet, she probably has a good chance to win. We know Angie has very good takedown defense, 77%. We know Dern's wrestling is not very good, 11%. Saturday, this was the first bet I made, actually. I went with Angie plus 160 on Saturday afternoon. You know, I do think she's going to be able to stay on her feet. We've seen, like, Randa Marcos jump into Mackenzie Dern's guard. I don't think Angie Hill is going to make a bad decision like that. I think Dern would have to truly get her down, and I don't think she quite can. You know, we know Angie's getting up there in age, right? Like probably 37, 38 now. But yeah, I'm on the Angie side. I can just picture Dern getting stuffed, walking forward aggressively, but getting hit with light, straight punches. I got a couple ideas here that are like almost overly chalky. I'm not even sure if the odds would be any good, but we all know that Angie is like always in split decisions. She's often getting robbed, right? But she's got split decision written all over her. We think of Dern as like this monster finisher, which she obviously does have that skill. She's actually been in 2 split decisions in a row as well. So, you know, I think like a split decision prop, it's probably going to be like plus 400 to get Angie by split decision, like not something juicy enough to actually play it. The other idea is like Dern finish only and Angie decision only. Again, so obvious that I don't know how good the odds will be. I thought about all kinds of things from Angie props to those things I just mentioned. And when I boiled it down, like Angie at plus 160 was good enough. That's what it did.
Okay. Hey, I do not hate it, man. I don't hate it at all. I'm going to be cheering for Angie. I like her. Huge fan of hers. But she's definitely getting up there in age, and that cliff will eventually find its way to her. Unfortunately, Father Time beats us all. But thank you, my guys, so much for coming on the pod today. Thank you for tackling tackling these fights here with me today. I appreciate you. And of course, the 200 live viewers hanging out in the chat with us tonight. Again, like I said, make sure you support our guy, UFC, free UFC bet picks. You can find him, massive following over on Instagram. He also does have a Twitter. We need to buff those numbers up there for him. But man, if you've got anything coming down the pipe, or if you've got anything you want to promote or tell the people how they can support you, by all means, floor is yours. Have at it.
Appreciate it. We had some folks in the chat wanting some disagreements, so we ended the card with a couple disagreements. So that's pretty good, right? This was a pleasure, Clint. I've been looking forward to it. Follow us on Instagram. We're having a great year. I'm 83.5 units up for the year, but as Clint knows, that's actually really down from where it was at the end of March. We had a terrible April, lost my ass in April. At one point in March, it was up 140 units this year.
It was crazy.
Of official bets, hit some wild plus 2,000 stuff. So I'm trying to do fewer parlays and more straight picks. Those have been on fire this year. So yeah, having a strong year. But I also take pride in giving more than just picks. I try to help people make good decisions, be conservative, be less reckless. It's a lot of hard work. So Clint, thanks for everything you do. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram. Very easy to find us.
My pleasure, man. It's been long overdue. We've been DMing about fights for a long time. So the conversation definitely needed to happen. Thank you very much for joining me here on the show today. Everybody, it's the last fight night before we get a break. There's no UFC card next week, so let's make this one count. It's a little sketchy. It's a little grungy. We're definitely dumpster diving, but I think we found a couple of decent spots. I think we found some okay opportunities to make some money to help us survive that off week. Just appreciate you guys. I want to share this real quick because I always tell you guys just how much I appreciate you guys for, without you, I wouldn't be here, right? The podcast was never something I expected to take off, and it's gone incredible places. The following I have now, I just never expected to have. And it's all because of you guys. I paid off my family credit card today. We've had credit card debt hanging over our head for years. And because of the income from this show, from this podcast, because of the support that I get from you guys, I've earned enough on this side hustle to be able to put my family in a better place. So I am just beyond humbled and grateful right now. And it's all because of you guys. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for everything. You guys tune in every single week and hear me ramble about these stupid fights, and you have no idea how much it means to me. So thank you. And with that said, you guys just get out there and kick some ass. We'll see you Friday for the post weigh-in show as always. And let's roll.